All right, Big Bang. Today is Thursday. It is April 10th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. We're joined on Zoom by Ben Lamm. Ben, you joined us 3.5 years ago. We talked about you bringing the woolly mammoth back. We still have the tooth or the piece of it. We don't know exactly what piece it was.
It's a fossilized woolly mammoth tooth.
Yeah, it's a slice of a mammoth molar.
Yeah.
Yes, we still have that. It's been in our studio ever since you sent it to us. So true story, this is how it happened. So obviously like the news went like wildfire earlier in the week about the Direwolf, and we're like, oh shit, we should have him back on. And then probably 2 minutes later, it pops up in my feed that you're on Rogan. I was like, motherfucker, we're never going to hear from him again. Like he's gone forever. So thank you for not forgetting about us, and thank you for doing this and coming back on.
No, you guys are great. We told you we'd keep you updated on everything. We planned a more thoughtful rollout, but the New Yorker broke the embargo, and it actually. So we've been fielding calls for the last. We try to be very transparent with the work that we're doing. We try to do a podcast. We have 95 scientific advisors, 17 academic universities, 170 scientists. So we've grown a lot since the last time we've been together, and they broke embargo. They ran with the story, even though we had an agreement. And so then I'm getting calls from like Time Magazine and all these other people that we it's a very hard story to understand because the science is very, very difficult. Mm-hmm. And then all of these other publications that we have great relationships with got very mad at us and turned on us. They're like, you motherfuckers, why didn't you call us and tell us about this? I was like, we were going to, but then these guys like jumped the gun. And so we've just been kind of in firefighting mode the last 48 hours, trying to make people that we've built 5-year relationships with not totally hate us.
We still like you.
Thank you.
Is there can you sue them for that?
What's embargo breaking? Sounds serious.
You can't sue them. And we did ask them, we did send them a letter and ask them to hold all their materials and not delete anything. But I'm not a litigious guy. I mean, I think that's for douchebags. And so unless you like really hurt someone like my family, then, it's gloves off, right? Yeah. But there's other ways to deal with that. But it's like.
Could sick a direwolf on them.
Yeah, I was like, I'd like you to meet our direwolves. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's stupid and it's sad. I mean, I wish that they would just be honest. And they're claiming they didn't break embargo, which is just absolutely insane. So I wish, we probably won't ever talk to them again. And, we'd highly encourage no one else to talk to them again because they're pricks.
Fair enough.
There you go.
So when did the Direwolf project actually start? Because I went back and was listening to our episode. I'm like, did he mention that?
No, it was a total accident. So I'll give you the 2-second summary on how it happened. We've announced 3 species. We talked to you right when we launched the Mammoth, and that's still our flagship project. It's our hardest project because of the gestation of elephants, but we've actually made a lot of progress on that. And we're in the editing phase on the Mammoth, which is cool. So there's originally we told you it was we thought 50 to 60 edit genes that we're editing. It's now about 85, and we've actually immortalized cell lines, and we've done induced pluripotent stem cells. And we've edited about 25 of the 65 to 70 genes that we'll need for our 1.0s. And so we made a lot of progress on that. But then as the company grew and started making success, we're building this very complicated end-to-end system, right? Like going from ancient DNA to animals, right? So you got all these other things like cloning and genetic engineering and computational biology and cellular engineering and quality control sequencing on the back to make sure you're only bringing healthy animals to life. And so we had to build a very robust system, right? And since we've talked to you, we raised about $435 million. And so we raised a lot more capital. But that system, to make that capital efficient, it's good to be working on multiple species, right? Mm-hmm. So we added the Tasmanian tiger. We then added an avian genomics group to focus initially on the dodo. And so we announced these 3 flagship projects. We've been working on them. It's going pretty great. But then out of the blue, we were up meeting with an indigenous people group called MHA Nation, and they're an awesome partner of ours. We were showing them some of the work that our Colossal Foundation. Since we also started Colossal Foundation, we raised $50 million for that, so that we could apply more technology to conservation. We were giving them an update on all things bison genomics, right? Because that's what that project is. And they started giving us a feedback that we should be working on a species, more species like bison that are American species. And they said, they believe culturally that the direwolf was the great wolf in their culture, and it'd be great to do the direwolf. Well, then 3 months later, we're in North Carolina talking about the most endangered wolves in the world are American red wolves. And we're like, okay, well, you've been working on this for 50 years, Fish and Wildlife. Somebody should step in and like save the species. And then the last thing was like over the last like 2 years, we've had this happen where we've had like kids and parents send us like, this looks like a camel, but I think it's a dodo. Okay. I'm not going to critique kids' art because I think that's, I don't know if I could do much better. And dodos weren't purple to our knowledge. Okay. But anyway, we've gotten this like influx of like kids' art and parents and teachers saying they love this, right?
Yeah.
And we started getting more and more celebrity investors like Tom Brady and George and Peter Jackson. So we thought if we could do the direwolf, we could do something that was pretty cool that some of our indigenous people groups would be excited about. We could build some cool tech to help save wolves. We bring awareness to wolf conservation, and we could do something that would inspire kids. And so we started the project. There was very little direwolf DNA. But once we got a couple of core samples that we didn't think would produce any DNA, we just kind of hit the jackpot. And then 18 months later, we had puppies.
Wow. That seems like a crazy fast turnaround.
Well, it's because we built all the infrastructure, right, for Mammoth and thylacine, right? So it's like, if we had to start from scratch, it probably would have taken us, 3 or 4 years. But we have 4 labs. We've got these incredible scientists and teams. So we're able to go pretty quick. But still, taking a 13,000-year-old tooth and a 72,000-year-old skull and making puppies is pretty magical.
So how different is, because I've seen the pushback where like he didn't even make it direwolf.
Oh yeah, we've seen it's like people like
why can't people just be excited about something cool?
Yeah, you can be. Yeah, so I'm on a private listserv with the Ancient DNA crowd that the team at Revive and Restore put together. They're the nonprofit that kind of got the world talking about ancient DNA. And one of the number one bioethicist at Stanford actually commented, and that's how he ended it. He goes, in this world of darkness right now, can't we just be excited that this is fucking cool? Like,
it's awesome.
Can't we say this is cool? And so what Colossal has always said, so I'll clarify right now. What Colossal has always said from day one is we were doing function. Even you go back and listen to the tapes on you. We never said we're going to clone a mammoth. We said it's impossible to clone. There's no cells. Yeah. You have to have cells so we're not trying to make these copycats. What we're trying to do is we're trying to identify what genes made a mammoth, what genes made a dodo, what genes made a direwolf a direwolf. And direwolves were larger wolves. They were a Pleistocene wolf. And what we know from the skeletal morphology alone is that they're 20% bigger. Based on their bone density, they were a little bit stockier and stronger, right? So we know those two things. And then that's kind of all we know. And then now what we were able to do with our resampling and some of our technologies is we have about 500 times more data. We're actually going to send this out to all the press today for fun because we knew this would create some controversy. We were planning to release it with our announcement. The New Yorker kind of ruined all that. So continue to let everyone know how terrible the New Yorker is. And,
I love it.
Yeah, for the rest of my life.
All right.
I love it.
I'm a moderately young person, so they got a lot of the time coming to me.
Well, and who knows what kind of DNA you come up with? You might live to 200 the way you're.
Yeah, I mean that's the plan, right? Yeah. And so we have a paper. And so what we found is that just like there's 65-ish genes that we need to edit in a mammoth to bring back those lost phenotypes, right? Like that shaggy coat, curved tusk, dome cranium, things that when you see it, you're like, holy shit, it's a mammoth, right? And it serves the ecological function. We found that in the direwolf, there's about 14 genes because direwolves are 99.5% the same as gray wolves. And so what's interesting about that is we selected 14 genes. We made 20 edits, which is more edits than anyone's ever made with germline engineering. So I love that no one's like saying they've basically done the moon landing of genetics. And they've also, it's the first animal with ancient genes that have been brought back that are 10,000 years old. But nobody wants to talk about that. No one wants to talk about the marvel of science that we have created. Yeah. Everyone just says, but we don't know if we can call it direwolf. And it's like, we just think it's dumb because we have brought back all of the genes that made a direwolf truly a direwolf in terms of those genes that drive shape. Like, these are 5-month-old puppies and they're 80 pounds. If you look at our direwolves next to a 5-month-old puppy, you're going to look at them and say, a 5-month-old gray wolf, you're going to look at them and say, that's not just a genetically modified wolf. That's something different.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't look at it and not look away. It's kind of crazy.
Are there any other features that, like, just with the naked eye you can see that's a difference?
Yeah, so you can do you can actually do you can see cranial facial. I mean, is it okay if I share? Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah,
of course.
Sure.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. So I'll share my screen really quick. Yeah. So one of the things that you'll see on the direwolves is like this is obviously a direwolf, one of our direwolves, or colossal direwolf, or any other thing you want to fucking call it. But you know, this does not look like if you Google a
gray wolf,
5-month-old wolf puppy, it doesn't look like it, right? They have a significantly stockier build. Their coat, which is, you know, we've gotten pushback online because there was a paper 5 years ago. Ironically, Beth Shapiro, our chief science officer, was on that paper and did the DNA sampling for that paper that said direwolves were red. It's like, they weren't red. There's nothing in the DNA that ever said they're red. We have 50,000 years of genetic divergence between our direwolves, and they're clearly white. And so,
so they are all white. I was wondering if you guys are like, let's just make a ghost from Game of
Thrones. No. Kit Harington's one of our advisors, and he was excited. He was excited that they were white.
Yeah.
But like, even when you see a black wolf, that's actually a gene from a dog. So there are no black wolves in nature that don't have a dog lineage. And this goes back to that whole concept of speciation, right? At the end of the day, there's 11, I think now, or 12 different definitions of speciations. And by many species definitions, a polar bear and a brown bear, which when you or your child sees them, knows that there's a difference between a brown bear and a polar bear. By many definitions of speciations, pretty much all of them, except one, which is based on phenotypes or physical attributes, says that they're the same species because they can interbreed, they live in the same place, they have their tooth morphologies are similar. All of these things, by many people's accounts, polar bears should be classified as brown bears. But that's a human construct that's stupid, because if you look at a brown bear and you look at a polar bear, a polar bear is much more likely to eat you because it's 100%, a carnivore, and it's way more aggressive. It's bigger. It has an Arctic adapted coat with different types of hair. It's got more fat. Oh, and by the way, it's also aquatic. So it's actually registered as a marine mammal. Yeah. So you can't sit here and tell me that those things are the same thing, right? And so there's another form of speciation that basically says, oh, based on size or based on these physical attributes, they are different species. And so that's kind of what we subscribe to because anyone with a brain can see that. Yeah. But what you can see with the direwolves, which is pretty cool, is not only this amazing coat, they have tremendous, like they are stockier. Ours are 80 pounds, and they're only 5 months old. Why that's important is because direwolves are about 20 to 25% bigger, and our direwolves, we think they'll be about 140 to 150 pounds. The biggest wolves out there are somewhere between 75 and 105 pounds. They can go up to 110 if they've just eaten a big carcass. But another thing we didn't know until we put in the direwolf coat genes was that we knew that they're white from the sampling of the DNA. We knew they weren't red, but you can almost see this like mane-like structure. It's so cool. Like, nobody knows what we just put in the genes that we knew do coat size and color and made edits to the genes that regulated how they grow, right? Which is pretty awesome. This isn't as good of a photo, but you can see a couple of really cool things. You can see the musculature and the size. Like, this doesn't look like a scrappy little wolf, right? No. You can see like the gait and how it stands. You can see along this ridgeline this like mane-like piece. And then you can even see our snouts are larger and our heads are a little bit larger than normal wolves, which is consistent with the fossil record of direwolves. And you can even see the musculature on the nozzle because they had a stronger bite. So yeah, it's pretty cool. We're pretty excited about them.
Well, and I did Google 5-month-old gray wolf puppy, and they look almost like a little coyote. Like
they look like a little
cute. Where that looks like a full-grown shaggy wolf.
Yeah, that looks like a super wolf, and it's 5 months old.
That's crazy. So are you planning on doing so you have three total now, right? Puppies?
Yeah, we have 3 total now. We've got Romulus and Remus, which were our first 2 males born in October, and at the end of January we birthed Khaleesi. Nice. We named her for George R. R. Martin. We didn't want to name her late, and once again, we have definitely hit a nerve with these direwolves because we've had people saying Khaleesi was a Targaryen and not House Stark, and you guys are bastards for doing that. And I was like, no, there's actually thought because. Sophie Turner is actually an advisor to the business. George R. R. Martin is an investor in the business and wrote a check to the business. And Kit Harington's an advisor to the business. And we decided we didn't want to name her Lady because she's a female because Lady dies in the show. Yeah. And so we thought this way, and since we don't plan to make dragons, we thought this way was an homage to the Targaryen fans. Because they're already direwolves, so the Stark people already like them. Yeah. But yeah, we've even gotten feedback on the naming.
Are you planning on having breeding pairs eventually, where you're just going to let them go and let them be wild effectively?
Yeah. So we actually have a 2,000-acre secure, expansive ecological preserve that they're living on. Mm-hmm. We're monitoring them, drones, live wire, cameras. We have 10 full-time employees that just kind of monitor and take care of them.
Damn, I want an internship up there.
Yeah,
do you have a 3-week summer program?
It's pretty beautiful. It's amazing. It's like heaven there. It's amazing. And we will make another probably 3 to 5 more because we want to get to call it a 5 to 8 pack dynamics is what we kind of want from a pack so that we can study them. We hope to be working with Bridget Von Holt, who's the number 1 researcher in wolves, is a part of the project. She wants to do some monitoring of them. We worked with the team that led the wolf rewilding into Yellowstone. They want to do monitoring. Eleanor Carlson, who's arguably the number 1 canid, which includes wolves and dogs, researcher in the world at the Broad Institute, which invented CRISPR, who's a part of the project. She wants to do monitoring. So probably do a lot of monitoring with this group. And then based on that process and in collaboration with the government and some of our indigenous people groups, we will maybe rewild them and secure, expansive reserves on indigenous people lands because they have a cultural connection to them.
Okay.
That's kind of what I was wondering too. I'm sure the whole process has been fun and rewarding. But when you were on with Joe, you mentioned how you pet one for the last time and it got a little skittish and you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm never touching Remus again.
Yeah, you're done with it. Like when they get reintroduced, is it like up another notch for you to see how this goes then?
Yeah, we've been working since we were last on with you guys. We've started to build what we call these in-country working groups. So, like for example, not to give anyone homework, but they went to colossal.com/Tasmania. They would see, we have people from the Logging Commission, the government, ecologists, people from the university. We try to build these working groups that we meet with every single quarter. To figure out kind of what that path to rewilding is. Sometimes people think about rewilding and they think, oh, you're just going to make animals and release them into the wild and let's see what happens. And so some of the pushback we sometimes get around that, but that's just not the process. It's actually a very stage-gated process. And I'd almost argue that we are not even in charge of the rewilding. We bring together the coalition that does it, but it's really up to the governments and up to the ecologists and indigenous people groups, right? We want to build those right dynamics. And that also goes for our critically endangered species. So no one, by the way, in the press is talking about the 4 red wolves that we cloned from just taking blood. There's 15 red wolves left in the wild, only 15. And they all come from 12 different founder lines. So there's not a lot of genetic diversity. we found new founder lines, and using this process that we developed from isolating a certain type of cell that's found within blood, we actually then cloned 4 red wolves. We actually made more red wolves than dire wolves, but they weren't in Game of Thrones, so no one gives a shit.
Nobody blinks.
And we increased the genetic diversity by 25%.
To move it over to the woolly mice for a little bit, those things, I'm not even like kind of a guy who would have something like that as a pet or anything, but they are very cute, I must say. What behavior are they showing that represents woolly mammoths the most? Like what?
Yeah, so we engineered 8 edits into them, mostly around everything that has been expressed. We can see everything that's been expressed except for one edit. So 7 of those edits were focused on hair length, the way of which the hair grows, because mammoth's hair grows a couple of different ways. So that gives it that texture. It also prevents, more, adds more heat insulation and whatnot. And then also color, right? Like we know mammoths were this like brownish golden fur because when you take them out of the permafrost and get some of the permafrost and guck off them, there's still hair preserved. You can see it. So all of that was kind of consistent. Those are the mouse equivalent edits to what we've made with the that we are currently making in our Asian elephant cells with our mammoth genes. So those all work. The one thing that we haven't done, we just got approval. So everything that we do, we have an IACUC board, which is all around animal safety and animal rights. And then we're also certified by American Humane Society, the oldest humane organization in the world. And we have submitted approval to test fat metabolism. So we took the gene that mammoths have that's based on what their diet was plus cold tolerance to see how they store subcutaneous layers of fat. So we just got approval for that. We just bought the machines for that. And it's not a system where you take mice and you throw them in a freezer and hope for the best, right? It's you feed them, you see how they behave, and you monitor them. You change the temperature, you add more of the diet. Do they eat more? How do they? Do they get more lethargic, or do they get more invigorated? So we're just starting all of those experiments, and those will go back into our paper for peer review, hopefully by the end of the year. So, but right now they do have their own little weird personalities. We spend the most time with the 2 that we've shown the world, but we've made 30 plus of them. But the 2 that we showed the most of, Chip and Dale, Chip is insane and just runs around all the time, and Dale's kind of more chill. So they do have their own weird personalities. And it was crazy when we launched, they started to have meme coins, and people would be like, "Where is Chip? No, Dale is the best. Which one was born first?" I was like, "What?" They're clones, so all kind of burned at the same time. So it's been weird.
How many people have reached out to you to buy them for their kid as pets? I'm sure people are going crazy. Yeah, I bet.
Non-stop. We've had people show up, which we're fine. We are happy, they're excited, but our labs are not open to the public. But we've actually had people find our labs and just knock on the door and want to see the mice and stuff. So it's got a little weird, but it's okay.
Yeah. Did you see a picture of them?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that's a cool looking mouse.
It is.
Yeah.
It's just cool that you can take that and splice it together. And are there any, we didn't know about the dire wolves last time you had us, but there's all kinds of places seeing animals that have gone extinct. We got like the giant beaver and things like that. Are we gonna have a giant beaver?
Brought up the giant beaver on Joe and he didn't bite. And I'm like, I'm not gonna bring it up again, but there was a giant beaver, which
I know they say it like impacted the bedrock of Manhattan. Like it had that much of an ecological impact.
It's crazy. I don't want to even try to quote the numbers because I'll screw it up, but everyone's talking about these massive direct air capture, carbon capture systems, right? Which are like trillions of dollars and they're insane. But if we just make more beavers, the ecological impact to that, to the wetlands, like and we put them in these areas that kind of suck and that have waterways, They can literally beavers just today, without even making super beavers from the Pleistocene era, right? If we just put enough beavers in these areas and like engineer more beavers, well, guess what? It actually sequesters more carbon than like all of the cars that we drive a year.
Wow.
And so we don't have to make these giant dumb devices. We could just make more beavers.
Just use nature. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
The other one.
There's a lot of cool stuff that we do have DNA for. We'll probably announce more capital at some point in the future when we close it. And then we'll probably expand both our work in the avian world as well as our work in the mammalian world.
Just promise us that you won't make the short-faced bear, because that thing's fucking terrifying. I don't know if you've ever seen that before.
Yeah, there is short-faced bear DNA.
Oh, no. Do it. Ben, don't fucking do it. That's where I'm out.
Just acknowledging the DNA exists.
Don't do it.
That grin makes me think he's got it.
I'm going to get a New Yorker subscription if you get one.
If you promise not to get a New Yorker subscription, I promise not to work on it.
Yeah.
That thing's fucking terrifying.
It's like
it's like a 17-foot. I mean, it's terrifying.
Yeah, it is terrifying. But if you're in for an inch, you're in for a mile. If you're bringing back a woolly mammoth, you probably need something that could take it down too.
I mean, our long-term goal is to have a healthy, complete Pleistocene area, and I don't want to out them yet, but we have had northern states, so outside of the indigenous people groups, northern states reach out to Colossal in the last 24 hours saying, direwolves were here, we have skulls, we would love to talk to you about a long-term rewilding plan for direwolves back in our state. So we're starting to get those types of requests. And it's only been 36 hours since.
Are you waiting to find out how they are able to hunt on their own before that process?
Yeah, they're not hunting yet. So, they were reared initially by their surrogate. So they had a surrogate mom, and they did all of the nursing to get the colostrum and stuff like that. We then pulled them because moms can get a little excited, and that's okay. And we see this sometimes even in domestic dogs. And so then we moved them to a form of synthetic colostrum and bottle feeding. So they have been very, habituated with humans. Mm-hmm. But then they now eat a combination of dry food, horse meat, bison meat, and then also some elk. So I think Joe is excited about the elk side. And so
I'm surprised he's excited about the elk side, because that's that's a competitor for him.
Yeah, and then we also put in. We're starting, I think it's 2 weeks out for Romulus and Remus to introduce carcass. So that's important because we need the social dynamics between the brothers, to ensure that they are eating, how they're eating together. How does that work? And that's kind of like pack dominance. So Romulus is a little bit bigger, but Remus is a little bit more bullish, and so I bottle fed Romulus, when he was a puppy. And then when I bottle fed them both, I've already spent more time with Romulus. And then, when I was in their preserve a couple weeks ago, Remus came up to me. Romulus wouldn't have anything to do with me, but then even Remus is getting a little weird and skittish, even though he knows me. And so they're starting to have those behaviors. They're starting to do some hunting, stalking type behaviors that we've observed on the ecological reserve. But I think next phase is carcass, and then they'll probably do some combination of carcass feeding and potential hunting.
Will you release a hunting video if they do it? If you capture?
We want this. I mean, this is about nature, right?
And, I'd love to see that.
Yeah. What is that? There's that Instagram, Nature is Metal, which is a little hard to watch at times, but it's also epic, right? Because this is life, right? And so, we want to be more geared towards everyone. We think science is for everyone, so we want everyone to watch it. So we probably won't, if there's anything massively weird, we probably wouldn't, we don't want to be Nature is Metal. But I do think that as they develop more and more of those skills and test out those skills, we have a full documentary crew. We're capturing a lot of content. Our goal is to keep the public updated with everything.
You talked about the benefits of reintroducing some of these animals. Is there any thoughts on how to take down this python problem in Florida? Do we got something in the hopper that could take care of these invasive species here?
Yeah. Well, a big concept right now that has not been, we had an incredible meeting with Secretary Burgum in the Department of Interior that's endorsed our project. They put out a statement saying that de-extinction is now critical for conservation because we're going to lose half of biodiversity right now. And we need new tools in the fight. And so the government's very supportive. I say that because, we've not had a lot of success in the past talking to different parts because these technologies are so innovative. One of the technologies in this category is what's called gene drives. So we're not developing gene drive technology right now, but we are talking to Australia, New Zealand, and a few other countries about gene drives where they have invasive cat problems, invasive donkey problems, invasive pig problems, and even fish and snakes in different ways. And what we found is there's a way that you can actually engineer food, give it to them, and make it where essentially that animal doesn't die, but it cannot its next generation cannot reproduce. So it's basically turning off the ability for it. So it's a way for the animals to live out their natural lives, and then their subsequent siblings offspring are effectively sterile. Wow. And so they just over time, over a couple generations, they're all gone. And I think that and controlled hunting and removal of invasive species is something that I think we need. Hunting of invasive species just isn't enough. I think we need genetic solutions like gene drives to do it, but it is one of those things that people get super scared of, right? Because like everybody's seen Resident Evil and they're like, oh my God, it's Umbrella Corp, and they're going to release a gene drive, then makes us all zombies or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting.
Is there, last question from me, like you've raised all this money, you have all these celebrity investors. Is there like a timeline or an exit strategy, or like, are you guys a profitable company? Like what round of the business are you guys in now?
Yeah, so we've spun out. So right now, I'd say at the beginning, we're like, Mammoths are cool. Someone will pay us something, right? I think that was our pitch. And you guys are going to make money. And we're like, it's like that Elmo meme that's like, I don't know, who knows?
Yeah.
And but now it's actually starting to come together quite well, right? And so since you guys were kind enough to have me on before, we spun out two companies publicly. One is Form Bio, which is a computational biology platform that's valued over $100 million. That's actually helping with drug discovery, cancer research, and whatnot, which is pretty cool because most of these technologies have application to human healthcare. We spun out Breaking, which is breaking.com, which is super sick. It's we call it Breaking because it's a genetically modified organism that actually emits an enzyme that breaks the chemical bonds of plastics. So we're not making more small plastics. We're actually disintegrating plastics. And so we launched that company last year. We're pretty excited about it. We have another one we haven't announced yet. So end of the year, we'll tell you.
Okay.
I think you'll get an absolute kick out of it. It's less human healthcare. It's kind of weird, but it's pretty cool. So spinning out technology companies has been a big success for us so far.
Okay.
And we've got several others kind of in the queue. And then we've started to work with some of the world leaders in different groups around the world around long-term annuities from carbon offsets and biodiversity credits. And if we're successful at making enough interbreedable herds of mammoths or thylacines or wolves or whatever, or even beavers, those ecological functions, by putting them back, we can actually get carbon and biodiversity credits. So the protection of the animals themselves are not only doing a helping with the ecosystem, but it's actually generating long-term annuities. And so we've modeled out billions of dollars in annual recurring revenue from the annuities of successfully putting the animals back. And so it's us supporting nature, but also nature is creating an economic return for us.
That's awesome. That's great.
Ben, you're the man. It's great to catch up 3.5 years later, and we're very happy to see all the advancements you've made.
It's incredible. It's incredible growth.
It was cool to hear you on there, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for reaching out, and we'll keep you posted. We're going to have lots of more weird stuff coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see it.
For sure. Keep us in mind.
No short-faced bears.
All right. Appreciate it. All right. Cancel your New Yorker subscriction.
Yeah. Wait, did I mention that the New Yorker broke embargo? Okay. I just want to make sure. Yeah, I don't know if I got that in. So.
All right, we got it. Thanks, Ben. We appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Bye.
that's it, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We will see you guys on Tuesday.
I love that guy.
Yeah, great guy.